Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another episode of Build-A-Figure. This is just a series where we get to explore the creative side of collecting. Custom head sculpts, commissions by the super talented artists out there working in 1/6 scale, figure upgrades, outfit sets, you name it, but most importantly, we get to build some figures. Now today, we're taking a look at 2 upgrades for the Hot Toys Clone Wars Anakin. When I saw Hayden in costume in the Ahsoka series, I knew that this was going to be my next custom with Duke Avocado from Good Luck Studios. Oh, and by the way, I love this little wax seal up on top, and the string that he uses to hold the box together. On the inside of this red cardboard box, we have a certificate of authenticity, hand-signed of course, and a proper wooden box containing the head sculpt. Now, the underlying sculpt I went with is actually the Hot Toys one. It fits the body perfectly, the sculpt was great, but I wanted to, number 1, change the eye position, number 2, adjust the skin tone because it was a little bit too tan for my liking, and number 3, of course, go all out with rooted hair. I just want to preface this by saying there is nothing wrong with the stock head sculpt. If you prefer Hot Toys paint apps and the sculpted hair, then that's a win for you. I'm really glad that you have a head sculpt you're proud to display in your collection. I just wanted to take it a step further. Now, the way that Duke packages his head sculpts, and by the way, I have left his links in the description below, is bulletproof. You have this Perspex container, foam padding, the head sculpt is covered in plastic, and it's on a post down below, and everything is taped down. Then the inside of the wooden box is also padded. So that just means that this head sculpt, during shipping, it ain't going anywhere. This head sculpt turned out so much better than I was expecting. I know Duke does good work, I don't want to discredit him at all. But I've seen my fair share of rooted hair Anakin head sculpts based off the Hot Toys sculpt, which as you can see, this one is. And they've been a bit hit and miss, honestly. This, 100% a hit. Duke Avocado, you nailed the Clone Wars Anakin hairstyle based off the Ahsoka series. Now, compared back to the stock head sculpt, and just remember this is the exact same underlying head, they certainly don't look the same. I did opt to quite dramatically change the hairstyle, where the one on the left is more so a realistified animated series version versus the Ahsoka appearance. The scar has been toned down a touch, but it's still there. The skin tone is now lighter, and the eyes being slightly larger and bluer, it just gives him so much more life. I still dig the stock head sculpt 100%, but the new one on the right just looks way more realistic. Oh, y'all are gonna love this. Holy shit. This figure has gone from like an 8 to an 8.5 to a 10. You know what? No, an 11 for me. That's how realistic this now looks. I'm gonna come right out and say it. He's now my new favorite Anakin. This originally being a Hot Toys sculpt, it means it fits the body perfectly. The neck can't be too long or too short, there's no stuffing around with blue tack, it pops on the body, it fits well, and now with the rooted hair, this is Hayden Christensen as Clone Wars Anakin from the Ahsoka series. Duke, I've said it already, and people are probably getting pissed at me saying it over and over again. Your work here is stellar. There's even this subtle 5 o'clock shadow, and look how clean the hairline is. You can make out the individual strands of hair. There's also some fuzziness around the back, which is exactly how it's supposed to be. Okay, enough gushing. So that was the first upgrade, the head sculpt. The second is for the lightsaber. The hilt is on point, the sculpt work, the paint applications, all that is good. But what isn't is the LED light-up feature. The swap-out forearm with the button cell batteries, yeah, it's a no from me. It doesn't even look good lit up, but not lit up, the blade is just far too pale. So when Fusion Reactors reached out and said, hey Justin, we're working on some custom sabers, would you like to review one of our prototypes? I said, yeah, absolutely. These are USB powered, but not in the same way as the Hot Toy sabers. And like I said, this is a prototype. It's actually got to go back to them after I finish filming this video. So the blade paint apps aren't final. But the light up feature, I think more than makes up for the slightly splotchy paint apps on the blade. I have left all of Fusion Reactor's contact information in the description below. So these blades, they are not CCFL. Usually for custom sabers they do go CCFL and they are really bright, but they've got drawbacks. They get super hot, almost hot enough to melt plastic. And they've got the little dongle at the end for where the connection to the power source terminates. This doesn't have any of that. No live wires at the end, and no heating issues. Once they tighten up the paint apps on the blades, I reckon that these are going to be my go-to LED saber upgrades, at least for my collection. Now, the hilt isn't quite right for Anakin, I know. I'm pretty sure this is the Empire version of the Graflex saber. It's close enough. Being held in his hand, you'll just see the bunny ears and the windscreen wiper blades for the grips down the bottom. You won't even see this little bubble strip on the handle. Hot Toys, this is how you do a real LED light-up lightsaber. Not those crappy little baselit hilt flashlights that you've been giving us powered by USB, where you just sort of hope and pray, I guess, that the light transfers through the blades and then it never actually does. This looks like a convincing, real-life, shrunk down to 1/6 scale lightsaber blade. The brightness, the saturation, how it casts this hue on objects around it, illuminating the scene that you pose Anakin in, for figure photography, that's going to be perfect. All of that stuff I love. There are some drawbacks, however. Number one, the blade is brighter on one side as compared to the other. Not a deal breaker, I don't think. You can just angle it. But even the darker side is still lighter than the Hot Toys light-up lightsabers. And then up the top, you do have a slightly darker tip to the blade. But even with the studio lights on, this still looks very impressive, and it casts that blue glow on my hand. Now that we have turned the studio lights on, however, you can see that the surface is a touch rough. I am hoping they tighten up the paint applications like they said they were going to for future batches, because this one comes across splotchy. You could always argue, though, that that's the blade in motion. For me, I just want it cleaner. Just comparing the hilt part, as you can see there's a cable at the bottom, and the hilt itself is quite substantially smaller than the Hot Toys one. Some people have said that the Hot Toys Graflex hilts aren't right, so I am curious to know, please weigh in the comments below. Do you prefer the Fusion Reactors hilt? Is this a more accurate size for the Graflex sabers? I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying the splotchy effect on the blade is terrible. It's just not my personal preference. It wouldn't be too hard to correct either, just sand the darn thing down and airbrush some translucent paint over the top. Okay, so I quickly wanted to show you what it looks like with Anakin holding the lightsaber. You can tuck this cable inside his gauntlet, it's just that mine doesn't close. It's a first batch issue and they apparently fix it with later batches. The blade being as bright as it is, and the head sculpt being as absolutely breathtaking as it is, I am over the moon with how this custom turned out. Wrapping up on another episode of Build-A-Figure, another one in the can, specifically Clone Wars live-action Anakin from the Ahsoka series. Don't forget, I have popped the links to Duke Avocado and Fusion Reactors in the description below. Now, in the spirit of full transparency, I love this, but I don't know that it's going to be worth it for everyone. You have to be a real Hayden fan and probably a Clone Wars fanatic as well. Because this head sculpt cost me more than the entire Hot Toys Anakin. And that's for the paint job plus the hair routing. But I do not regret it, not one bit, because Duke was a pleasure to work with. Mixing up the hairstyle and changing little strands, the position of them, and giving it more life and volume, or tweaking the eye position or the skin tone. Until this head sculpt is shipped, he let me make just a bunch of tweaks and changes. Initially, when I started collecting, I probably wouldn't have gone down this route with the custom heads costing more than the actual figures they sit on. Now that I've been collecting for a while, I want bespoke pieces like this, one-of-ones, figures that I've had my own stamp on. I get to fully customize a head and make it to my own specifications. You won't see another head sculpt like this in anyone's collection, and that's, to me, what makes it so freaking worth it and so special. If you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.